We do have three student presenters today, and each of them will have 15 minutes to present their research findings. Follow that, we have 5-minute Q&A sections. It is my job to ensure we are on schedule, so please don't mind if I stop you. At the end of the section, I will appoint the students and the industry panel members to take a group photo. All right? So it is my pleasure to begin by introducing our expert panel members. We should have 4, but now we only have 2 in here. They're coming, all right? Miss Amanda Wan should be here, but I guess she should be coming later on. So our first expert panel member, Miss Jessica Lee, Associate Project Manager from Marketing Communication Consulting. Welcome. Our second expert panel member, Mr. Jovi, Executive Director of Rooms from MGM Macau. So now our first presenter this morning is DEPHANIE Chang. Please come for presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Daphne. Today is an honor for me to present my thesis paper here, bringing you all the topic on exploring the grief cycle during quarantine stay through the role of hotel brand trust. Here's the table of content, and there are a total of 5 sections. Without further ado, let's begin with the introduction. I believe all of us here are very familiar with the term COVID-19. We see it on the news and almost everywhere, every day since 2019. This global pandemic has accumulated over 100 million confirmed cases within a year. With no precise remedy, social distancing has still been the most effective approach so far. Which leads us to another typical term, that is quarantine. For your information, quarantine refers to the movement limitation and separation of people suspected with infection from those who are not. In response to this pandemic, the Macau government implemented laws stating all residents and non-residents with a travel history to the mentioned places must undergo at least 14 days of mandatory quarantine at assigned hotels from March to August 2020. In this regards, 12 hotels were designated as the official quarantine hotels, ranging from yet to open 3-star hotels to 5-star ranking casino hotels. Pandemic definitely affect mental health as well. While we are feeling sad or scared, we should also bear in mind that we are lucky we can still hang out with friends or have family gatherings. Can you imagine what it is like for quarantine participants not having to see anyone, nor talk to anyone in 2 weeks or even more now? Not really. This is why this research is needed. Since COVID is still an ongoing global issue, and Macau is one of the very few places in the world that uses hotel as quarantine station. However, we do not know what participants think about the quarantine experience and how it affects brand trust. Therefore, it is worth examining the impact quarantine hotels have on participants, as well as the importance of brand trust. Moreover, to the best of my knowledge, no academic studies have been done on quarantine experience during COVID. To be more precise, this research answers the following questions. First, is there a change in mental state of quarantine participants who had experienced time abroad and during the quarantine? If so, what are the hotel attributes contributing to these changes? Lastly, what is the role of hotel brand trust on the impacts on guests' mental health and the quality of life? Before executing the research, let's look at a summary of related previous studies. First, for psychological impacts, it is proved that both suspected and infected patients ran into extreme emotions which affect quality of life. If it is not treated properly, they may suffer from long-term disorders. Studies also shown that these factors are caused by isolation and infinite lockdowns. Next, Kübler-Ross grief model, which is an important guide for these studies, as it describes emotion changes after a trauma, and COVID is definitely a shocking and heartbreaking incident. Moreover, this model translates emotion explicitly into 5 stages. In the first stage of denial, people tend to refuse to face or believe the hard truth. Moving on to anger, they start blaming everything for their sufferings. In bargaining, they start reminiscing the past, regretting actions, and saying, if I did that, I would not have to suffer this right now. In depression, which is the most horrifying stage, people will suffer from a lot of pain and extremely negative emotions. In acceptance, it means that as time passes, the person will gradually find peace to deal with the situation. To improve quarantine experience, it is proof that the quality service provided by lodging property can greatly relieve negative mentality, especially through personalized and heartwarming services. Also, basic necessities have to be adequate at all times. This includes food and Wi-Fi. On the other hand, the government should provide sufficient updates and be transparent to the public. Lastly, for hotel trust and brand image, it is found that trust is the most fundamental and vital mediator between the business and consumer loyalty. So, where does trust come from? Surprisingly, studies show that star rating alone do not motivate trust, but word of mouth. Furthermore, there is an interdependent connection between trust and the brand image. Next, let's proceed to methodology. The study context of this research is mandatory quarantine participants in Macau. It uses a qualitative approach. The study scope covers 7 quarantine hotels with 3 5-stars, 2 4-stars, and 2 3-star hotels. A total of 12 quarantine participants from 3 age groups were interviewed. The interview questions include their reaction and expectations on the assigned quarantine hotels, the actual quarantine experience, evaluation on changes in mentality and their quality of life, and finally, the impression and future engagement with the hotel. Theming and coding were used to analyze the data. Finally, we came to the highlight of this presentation, the findings, which is organized into 3 parts: before, during, and after quarantine. In before quarantine, participants were asked to share their impression towards quarantine and their concerns. It is groundbreaking to find out that there is no feeling of rejection, as they all agree that quarantine is necessary. Regarding their concerns, they worry about the meals, Wi-Fi, and sufficient sunlight in the room, as it greatly affects mentality. Then, how did they feel when they know about their assigned hotels? For participants in 5-star hotels, for sure they felt really happy and lucky. Some even claimed that it is a dream come true. However, some of them have never heard of this hotel before, but still beheld a high expectation due to its ranking, while others relied on word of mouth and reputation. On the contrary, for non-5-star hotels, participants felt worried and disappointed, especially about the service quality. Eventually, they had no expectations or kept it on a minimal level. From the above findings, it can be concluded that star rating can motivate trust when information is insufficient, and word of mouth as always. During quarantine, participants were asked to list important hotel attributes that influence their stay, and here's a summary. I'll now explain it one by one. The first factor is personalized service. In 5-star hotels, participants receive positive drawings and memos along with the meal delivery. Besides, there were daily surprises like some snacks with an encouraging letter. Also, staffs would make personalized phone calls to them, which made them feel warm and loved. Meanwhile, in non-5-star hotels, staff also made personalized phone calls after receiving complaints on the food quality. They simply asked about the feedbacks and comments, but participants still feel that the hotel sincerely wanted to tackle the problem. To sum up, personalized services always bring positive impacts. It can help to enhance the satisfaction in 5-star hotels and help to turn around a bad situation in non-5-star hotels. The next factor is food. Participants in 5-star hotels were given various food options with a menu for them to choose from. Although they claimed that the food was just of average performance, they did not complain at all, as they understood that it is a quarantine. From this, it is clearly shown that a prejudice for the hotel do exist. The situation differs in non-5-star hotels. Menus were fixed, and some participants claimed that there were bugs inside and even outside the meal, which made them feel even more distrust and angry. To sum up, if meals were done properly in 5-star hotels, it would not create any effect. However, if it is done poorly in non-5-star hotels, it will result in an immediate guest dissatisfaction. The final factor is reaction to ad hoc incidents. One participant in a 5-star hotel shared that she was in need of a sanitary napkin and called the receptions. The hotel staff answered that they cannot provide it, but then one of the staff went to get it from her own locker and sent it to the room. Participants felt really grateful and sweet of her and claimed that this incident changed her perspective for the hotel. For that, in non-5-star hotels, there were 2 incidents. The first one is that the fire alarm rang suddenly, but there were no staffs and no direction. There was only a broadcast saying, all quarantine participants, please leave your room immediately. Participants were confused and scared as they did not have the room key. The problem was finally settled among participants' group chat rather than by the hotel. After this incident, they suspected the services even more. Another incident is that one of the non-5-star hotels published an apology letter with some snacks as compensation after receiving a lot of complaints, especially on the poor food hygiene. Participants who were angry before felt warm and even have empathy for the hotel. Most importantly, they believe that the hotel is willing to do better in the future. To conclude, if proper treatment was imposed in 5-star hotels, it can also enhance satisfaction. For non-5-star hotels, if the incident was treated properly, it can resolve conflicts. If not, it will result in greater distrust. Moving on to the role of trust. After reviewing the findings, trust is determined by prior knowledge and first impression. However, it is also a dynamic measure which can be altered. Therefore, 5-star hotels face the challenges of maintaining trust, while non-5-star hotels have to strive hard to gain it. Furthermore, participants in 5-star hotels who have high level of trust tend to have higher tolerance level as well. They maximize the merits and minimize shortcomings like the meals mentioned just now. Whereas in non-5-star hotels, lower trust level leads to lower tolerance level. Participants tend to be more sensitive and alert and are easily triggered by subtle mistakes. Then, does it mean that it is over for non-5-star hotels? Of course not. Staff's caring and friendly attitude is proved to be an effective tool to save the situation. Next, let's move to the grief cycle under hotel influence. As shown from the chart, in non-5-star hotels, participants go through all 5 stages. While in 5-star hotels, participants jump right straight to the acceptance stage during quarantine already and did not have to go through the stage of depression under the help of hotel attributes mentioned just now. So after quarantine, participants in 5-star hotels claim to have a bonding and therefore went back to dining or even staycation and would recommend it. While in non-5-star hotels, no bonding was found and therefore no future engagement. Last but not least, the implication of these studies. For theoretical implications, it adds value to the existing literature on brand trust and the complex relationship between the hotel and the individuals. Through exploring individual mindsets and the origin of trust, it sets guidelines for hotel attributes to shape the quarantine experience, which leads to an influence on quality of life and future engagement after quarantine. From these studies, hotel management can learn to be more flexible and open-minded in accepting quarantine participants as a new market, as it not only helps to utilize resources, but also act as a promotion and CSR for future benefits. Next, correct strategies have to be applied to maintain trust. For 5-star hotels, greater marketing efforts should be put, and for non-5-star hotels, management can evaluate to see if internal upgrade is needed. Finally, the government can learn from this study that they are doing a really great job in quarantine and they can confidently continue with their great work. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now is the time for the panel members. If you have any questions for the student.
Very nice presentation. I think when I look into your data, how many of them your participants actually are from like a local, and how many of them they are when they choose to quarantine in Macau, how many of them they are non-local? Do you have a percentage that when you're doing this research?
For my study, the study context is all local quarantine participants.
Well, if that will be added to more like find some of them they are non-local. For instance, some of them I know most of the people they choose come over to quarantine, they are either from Hong Kong or Taiwan. Either they have a business in China, they would choose coming over to Macau. They might have a different view, looking into the quarantine experience in Macau. As a matter of fact, I think I'm also working in the hotel industry. Looking into the 5-star or non-5-star hotel, I think all the hotel management, I'm sure that they would like to try the very best to provide the best experience to the people, particularly who have to stick into the same rooms for 2 weeks. That would be also the best if you can find from the research how many of them they're staying in like a more spacious room. Definitely would bring them a more different feeling. I know that the people they might willing to pay more if they're able to choose to stay in a new hotel into even a bigger room like a suite or a spacious room. Definitely will give them a better impression upon the arrival. So it will bring down the grief level in the very beginning.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you for your presentation. It's actually a very good one. And I also have a question about your data, because I just saw you talk about the age group, but do you have any like their profiles of your interviewees?
Yes. Actually, they are separated into 3 age groups. Like the first one is from 18 to 24, and followed by 25 to 34 and 35 to 44.
Yes, I mean besides age groups, so do you have other perspective?
Also, I did take consideration into the gender. For male and female, it is of 50 and 50 proportion. Because I think in this study, demographic, of course, is important for every research, but here we are looking into the hotel experience. So I think like the occupation or other things may not be as important.
Okay, it may be also important because they have their expectations as well. And then I'm also curious why you just categorize the hotel into 5-star hotel and non-5-star hotels.
Because after doing all the interviews and analyzing the data, the feedbacks from 4 stars and 3-star hotel is actually similar. So in order to present it clearer, so I just divide it into 5-star and non-5-star.
Because when I read your presentation, because it is, I don't know whether it is called bias or not, but because you have your expectations, and then so when you talk about 5-star is very good, but I think we all expect it. And when you say non-5-star hotels is not that good, so we are also expected somehow. So I would like to see whether there is any like insights that we can have, and then for the hotel operators, how they can learn from the lessons, learn from the studies as well.
All right, thank you. So I just have one quick question. When I look at the respondents, when you talk about the food quality, they're angry about for non 5-star hotel, but for 5-star hotel, the quality food without any problem. So that's why they do not have any angry comments about. But how about if both do have problem about the food? Do you think the same? Because the situation is actually because of the food quality, not because of angry or not about the perception.
Yes.
It's about the food quality.
Although I did mention that participants in 5-star hotel tend to have higher tolerance level, but actually it is just applied to like subtle mistakes. For like what you said, if both 5-star and non-5-star hotels, there were bugs in the meals, I believe participants in 5-star hotels will have greater disappointment due to their extra high expectation.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, our second presenter, he is Mr. Alex Wu. And we have one more expert panel members coming, Mr. José Pereira Coutinho. Please welcome him. Thank you.
Testing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alex Wu. Today, I'm going to deliver my undergraduate thesis supervised by Virginia. Before my presentation, let's have a quick throwback to 2020. Last year, humans have suffered a lot. We were faced with the lockdown and new fears. Kobe, the famous basketball player, passed away due to the helicopter crash. In Australia, wildfire raged out of control. Macau, as a tourism destination, has witnessed 85% reduction in the number of tourist arrivals. You know why it happened. That is coronavirus, as known as COVID-19. This study was to study the COVID-19 induced negative emotions and their impact on personal values and travel behaviors through a threat appraisal perspective. Here is today's agenda. Without further ado, let's begin with the overview of the study. Now, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about coronavirus? You may give me some negative vocab to describe your negative emotions because you cannot travel around. As a matter of fact, some scholars have found that a health crisis such as COVID-19 could lead to more changes into mental conditions, cognition, and behaviors. On the other hand, this study regarded Chinese Generation Z as who were born between 1995 and 2005 from mainland China, Macau, Hong Kong, and Taiwan as the study subjects. Compared with the other previous age groups, they were promised with material affluence, and also they were the first digital natives. Another report has shed new light on the spending recovery during the post-COVID-19. The post-COVID-19 purchase for travel services and the product will increase by 41% for Chinese Generation Z. Therefore, it is important to understand Chinese Generation Z through the identification of prominent values. Also, one scholar has pointed out that there is relationship between emotions and values. So here comes the problem statement. To identify the negative emotions and understand the value changes in COVID-19 in order to address the problem to revive the tourism industry. So here is my research questions. Firstly, how do Chinese Generation Z perceive and relate to threat appraisal of COVID-19, followed by the identification of prominent negative emotions and values? Lastly, how do outstanding negative emotions and value changes account for travel behavior changes will be identified? Now let's move on to the literature review part. The first concept is the application of protection motivation theory. In this study, I used the threat appraisal in my studies. In this study, there are two concepts, which are threat severity and threat susceptibility. In this framework, behaviors, particularly in protective behaviors, which refers to precaution and hyperdefensiveness. In the tourism context, we call it cautious travel and travel avoidance. The third concept is emotions. Emotions are defined as shared instinctive states of mind and are preceded and caused by the appraisal. However, the previous literature only shows that fear was the only emotion that was investigated into the relationship with threat appraisal in the tourism context. However, there are more negative emotions, including anger, sadness, anxiety, disgust. Now let's move on to the last concept, which is personal values. SWOT has defined that personal values are deeply rooted abstract motivations that guide, justify, or explain the attitude, norms, opinions, and actions, which shed new light on the relationship between values and behaviors. In his basic value systems, he has developed 10 basic values under 4 groups, which can further compared within 2 dimensions. The first dimension is willingness to changes, which is openness to changes versus conservation. The second dimension is care for others and self, which is self-transcendence and self-enhancement. Take security as an example. Security is defined as safety, harmony, and stability of the society, relationships, and self. Furthermore, value changes can happen if major crises arise, which is the successful application to the COVID-19. And it can be measured by the ranking its importance and impacted by the emotions. Based on the literature review, here are the hypotheses. The first hypothesis is when you evaluate a threat, there are immediate reactions to your negative emotions. Therefore, threat appraisal is positively associated with arousal of overall negative emotions. When it goes deeply, they will have some deep changes into personal values. So here comes the second hypothesis. Arousal of overall negative emotions is positively associated with changes in personal value orientations. Lastly, in reality, the values will guide and shape the behaviors. So the last hypothesis is change in personal value orientations are positively associated with protective travel behaviors. Here are the summary of my hypothesis. Now let's proceed to the methodology. This study has adopted triangulation, which is a mixed method of qualitative and quantitative techniques. More specifically, I used focus group firstly, and then you analyze the results from the focus group and apply the result to the survey distribution. The purpose of the focus group is to find out the outstanding personal values through the pandemic and also to fine-tune the questionnaire design and generalize the results. The main topic is Chinese Generation Z value changes during COVID-19, followed by a subtopic is about travel behaviors. In total, there were 2 one-hour sessions were held. A purposive sampling method was adopted to sample the Chinese Generation Z aged from 18 to 26 years old from mainland China, Macau, and Hong Kong. In total, there were 5 males and 5 females. Here are the results for study 1. We have identified 5 permanent personal values. First is security. We found that all the interviewees attached importance to personal hygiene and wearing masks. And during the lockdown, they have more leisure times to study a new language and master a culinary skills. Because the severity of COVID-19, some of them have no expectations for the future and they choose to live for now. Benevolence. Some interviewees will make some desserts for their friends. Lastly, self-directions. They will spend their leisure time to explore themselves for future career planning. The second result is they were found helpless because they were restricted to travel outside to enjoy the life. However, they would like to choose to travel to some low-risk destinations where the policies are easy to understand and obtain. Now it's the study 2 of the questionnaire. The purpose is to validate the hypothesis and to find out the possible effect between different constructs through design, pilot study, distribution, and analysis. The questionnaire was distributed online and offline. In total, there were 405 usable responses. And this is the questionnaire design with the screening question about age group from 18 to 26 years old, and travel frequency is twice or more than twice. There is also one highlight in the third construct. Helplessness from the focus group was integrated into the negative emotions during COVID-19. Firstly, descriptive analysis was conducted to provide an informative summary of my samples. The gender ratio is 4 to 6, and 50% of my samples are aged from 21 to 23. Because most of the over half of them are university students, so the monthly income is below 10,000, which can account for the travel frequency as the twice as the most travel frequency they have been experiencing. For this one, exploratory factor analysis was conducted to generate the COVID-19 specific negative emotions. Career anxiety, which is a temporary emotions, and resentment and personal anxiety is a personal, and fear is the deepest negative emotions because it's related to the losing lives. And also target orientation, altruism, hedonism was found in the exploratory factor analysis. And here is the regression analysis for model 1. It shows all the support for all the hypotheses. In other words, when people perceive high risk exposure, they may have more shallow changes in negative emotions, and going deeply, they will have some changes in personal values. In reality, it caused travel avoidance or cautious travel. And the regression analysis for model 2 is an explanation for the model 1. We find that negative emotion arousal is more than fear, but the greatest impact emotion is still fear. And here is the emotions and values relationship. Negative emotions motivate Chinese Generation Z to be the better one. Fear, however, discourage them, but live for now and take good care for others. You can see that career anxiety has no impact on any values because it is a temporary emotions. For this one, we find that target-oriented Chinese Generation Z have independent thinking and are keen on exploration to new destinations, which discourage their protective travel behaviors. Altruistic Chinese Generation Z take other safety into considerations. However, some hedonistic Chinese Generation Z are devoted to seek pleasures no matter what happens. So there is no impact of hedonism on protective travel behaviors. And here is the summary of my theoretical model and the results. And here comes the implications. Overall, triangulation was adopted to explore the prominent personal values with, in the exploratory studies. Theoretically, this study integrated basic emotion theory into protection motivation theory. There is a new insight on the group of negative emotions towards COVID-19 specifically, from the shallow to the deepest reflections. And also, they have different impact of emotions on values. Managerially, first and foremost, we have to understand and take good care of the Chinese Generation Z. Emotional marketing can be leveraged in order to arouse the emotional attachments to the destination or tourism-related brands. Fear has the greatest impact on the altruism, so we have to underscore the effectiveness safety measures. For example, we can emphasize the commitment to cleanliness is fulfilled by the same fear that Chinese Generation Z may go through. Last but not least, resentment and personal anxiety can shed new light on providing hand-on experiences. For example, culinary workshops of Macanese food and treasure hunting of Cantonese language culture can be developed to improve the city image of Macau. And here are the last part of the limitations. We can compare the Generation Z with other age groups in the later, and also we can analyze the actual protective travel behaviors in the later studies. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So now is the time for the expert panel members. If you have any questions for him. Yes.
Very nice animation and presentation throughout the whole your work. In your cover, I see quite a lot of participants participate in your research, around 400. You said before the COVID happened, the people that around traveling around twice or even more per year. Do you have any research or findings saying that where is the destination? Mostly is it abroad of China or still within China?
Well, in the previous studies, we need to segment the Chinese Generation Z as two groups. Some of them are pursuing their bachelor's degrees overseas, and some will stay inside China. The persons who choose to stay in China would prefer the domestic destinations. However, the Chinese Generation Z who studying overseas would like to seek pleasures from neighboring countries instead of the domestic destinations of China.
And my comment is, I think to promote the people, particularly Generation Z, to go for more traveling or go around. I think one of the best is, besides of hotel or the industry, to do more promotion. But the key success is, one of the things is right now the KOL, yes, or even the social media platform. Those are influencers. They can do a lot what you are thinking. I think simple one of the video clip that they can show how safe when they travel even, yes, to Macau or to any places, and that they can post it online. That will be even same as a powerful, same as a word of mouth to keep on sharing how safe it is and how simple it is to go around even to Macau or to another city in China. I think that would be even better than from a hotel or from industry itself they're doing by their own, but through the KOL is even powerful.
Yes,
right
they
now.
are more trustworthy, I think. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for him? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Alex. It's indeed a very good presentation from you. And then I can see how hard work you are, because you have to, quantify and qualify research. And then actually I have a question on the, because in your survey, you asked the people that have traveled twice before COVID-19. But I don't know whether I've missed that, because you didn't ask about, so what is their expectation for the travel maybe expectations, and then also their desire to go out or not, because I feel like your survey is more on the personal side instead of like their eagerness to go travel, something like that.
Yes, because in the academic perspective, we believe that intention are driven by the values. So I would like to take a new look from the inside to the outside. And this is the preliminary studies to focus on the inside and personal desire, because as I mentioned before, personal desire was triggered by the values and then intentions and to shape the behaviors. So I would like to take the first look for the deepest personal portraits.
All right, thank you. I think it's almost time. Actually, I do have questions to ask, but I'm not going to ask now. All right, later on. Thank you. So our last presenter is Ms. Jovi LAO. Please come for a presentation. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jovi. Today, I would like to share my study, Casino Employee Perception of Community Resilience in Tourism Destination. So first, I would like to thank you from my supervisor, Dr. José, to assist my study. So today's presentation will be divided by six parts. Introduction, literature review, methodology, result, discussion, and conclusion. Finally, I will provide some implication and recommendation for different parties. So everyone will know that Macau as Eastern Las Vegas with development of casino industry, right? So it requires a larger of labor demand. So attractable salary and Macau labor protection will make the resident to engage in this stable industry. So nowadays, 28% of the residents are working in casino industry nowadays. So something to notice that the single development of the casino industry and unbalanced distribution labor will make the industry and the employee to be the first to suffer the external and internal factors, such as the new hotel will be open in the Asia area and the COVID-19 in nowadays. So it should be more, maybe people will say that Macau have a certain curricular bounding capital, but people should not only rely on the policy because policy is not extensively, because policy is extended to the whole community rather than to only focus on the Pacific group. So it is important to enhance the community resilience and their casino employee adaptability, therefore to generate a community resilience to restrict the uncertainty situation in now and in the future. So this research, I will cover three problems. First, what is the weak element in the Macau community resilience? Second is, do casino employees rely on their ability or the organization resilience? The last one is about what is the differences in the perception of community resilience between operational staff and managerial staff. So let me briefly introduce what is a community resilience. Community resilience is about ability to restrict and overcome from different strangers. And it should be noticed that community resilience not only about a group of people who living in a geographic location, but we should more focus on the people who building a social connection in the area. So in measuring community resilience is quite a challenge because it's intangible things, and resilience is a unique concept. It involves a lot of factors such as economic background, location, those kind of things. So this research, I will fourth factor, such as the perception of personal resilience under the casino employee point of view, organization resilience, social capital. Finally, the economic background will be invited to assist the result analysis. So even there are a lot of measurement tools appear in the developed country. However, it may not suitable for the small city because such as Macau, right? So I have integrated the previous concept from different scholars to create a new framework. Here is my new framework, and with 5 hypotheses. We assume that the 5 hypotheses had a positive influence with casino employee point of view. So Macau is a small city with a little differences. So I have take Macau as a whole community to study its resilience. An online survey will be divided for 4 parts, and total 37 questions will be included. And the total 171 sample will be collected, and 32% from the male and 38% from the female. And the sample were distribution among the different company, and more than half of the respondents come from operation staff and 32 from the managerial staff. And the respondent age is in between 20 to 30. And the multiple regression analysis will be using for testing whether those kind of the variable have a statistical result. So the table shows that bonding linking government organization determine insignificant results. It means that those 3 aspects not really influence to create a community resilience. So also by comparing with the beta, nonprofit organization is a weak element in community Macau community resilience. So those kind of reason, I will explain that why bonding government organization linking is considered as insignificant result. First, over 40% of the employee are willing to share their difficulty with their family. It may relate to their identity of the family, and also their shape work causing a shortage of the communication time with others. And although our research point out most of the employees are satisfied the policy under the epidemic, however, the casino employee feel that those kind of the policy may not really help them to restrict the adversity, because I have already mentioned policy is target the overall society. So over 40% of the employee are not take part in the non-profit organization, and more than half of the employee not keep in touch with them. So therefore, for discussing the problem 2, let's try to understand the employee attitude about their job. This 3 question is showing that most of the employee, they feel they difficult to find a job and having a few working options. So they are unwilling to retire early. So this result also can identify that the casino employee, they perceive their knowledge and skill is insufficient. So more than half of the employees are interested in learning a new skill outside of the casino. But unfortunately, they can't rely on their ability to restrict the unemployment nowadays. You can see that figure 2 is so that the unemployment rate will be increased from 2.3 to 4.1. And there are a few reasons why the casino employee can't rely on their ability. So first is about the shift work, because it's not only causing the shortage of communication time, but also will lose their enthusiasm for participating in the activity. And the purpose of learning a new skill is for reducing their working stress rather than to create more job opportunity for improve their livelihood. they unwilling to communicate with their family. It may relate to the identity of the family. And last but not least, long-term dependency on the government and organization will lose their determination to enhancing their competitiveness and ability. And here is showing that most of the employees are satisfied the policy under the epidemic. So it's really, it can show that employees tend to rely on the organization, especially the policy, to restrict the adversity. So for the question 3, due to the sample were uneven distribution among 2 groups, I have involved the dummy variable in the multiple regression analysis. So this also table shows that nonprofit organization is influence the perception of community resilience under the casino point of view. And by finding the gap value with negative 1.7, we can estimate the CHEOK score, it means the community resilience score with operational staff with 5.8, while the managerial staff with 6.2. It shows that managerial staff have high perception of community resilience rather than the operational staff. It is not difficult to understand that because managerial staff have a certain extent of the knowledge, income, or even they have financial plans. So they have more ability to restrict the uncertainty. So this research will be discover nonprofit organization is the weak element in Macau community resilience. And also, most of the employees are rely on the policy rather than their ability. And it's very important to notice that having a certain knowledge and skill is very important to increase their personal resilience, further to build up the community resilience in the society. So I have some of the implication and recommendation for different parties. So first, I suggest the casino operator can establish some internal organization inside the hotel, and more concerned about the operational the needs from the operational staff, and provide some training program or some back to school program to improve their knowledge. So even the employee may not have time to participating in the community activity, but they still can get the immediate help inside the hotel. So job rotation for the employee of off-peak season is really important in nowadays. So it can let them to learn more experience and skill from different positions. So the development of the diversified economic is quite important in the future. And also government can provide some, not only provide some medical support, but also the intangible support, such as provide more subsidized training scheme and expanding to the casino employee. And the previous study is using a whole community population as a research object. However, the folding population will cause the error of the results. So I recommend the future study can use the occupation as a research object. So it can help us to find out what is the disadvantaged group in the community and enhance the ability and personal resilience, further to build up a community resilience to restrict the uncertainty situation in the future. So it's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jovi. And it's time for the expert panels. Would like to ask questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Your name is Joey, right? LAO. Very interesting topic. Congratulations. I like the contents, but because of time limitations, we could not see as for ourselves. First question is, how long time did you take to do the whole job? This, yeah.
For the online survey, I will conduct around 1 month to collect the data.
1 month to collect the data, but overall
is using 1 year.
1 year
to do my study.
Okay. Cost for 1 year. But indeed, it was the contents are very good. Hope you can share with the society, because there are a lot of elements that are very positive and interesting. Second thing is that one thing that caught my attention is that more than 40% of the employees are not sharing their difficulties with their families. And the second thing is that also 40% of the employees are not participating in the nonprofit organization. This raises a question is of the trust between the staff and the families and the staff with the NGO, those nonprofit organization. My question is very simple. Why and what could be done to strengthen their relationship between them? Because 40% is still very high. And last question is that overall, the whole study, it didn't tackle about the existing laws that makes them feel they want to change jobs. So that's why they try to upgrade their knowledge in learning different types of skills so that one day they could change their job. For example, you mentioned that shift is one problem for them because they sometimes in 1 month they need to change 3 to 5 timetables. Yes. It make them very confused and difficult. But on the other side, worldwide, we have casinos, but the same thing maybe does not apply to each country, such as United States. So having said that, is that I didn't see you tackle about the existing laws and what should be done in the society to bring in new elements in new laws or upgrading its existing law, such as the labor law, the collective bargaining and trade union, so that they can feel more attached and they can be really in very good in-depth knowledge of their rights, and so that the relationship between the employees and the casinos. One element that I want to bring also is that you suggest that the companies should provide more groups and more communication between them. And there are groups and they own, because it's very, very important. Thank you very much.
All right, couple of questions, just answer it quickly.
Okay, so for the first question, how to encourage the employee to join in the activity. So I suggest they try to communicate with their friend or the industry group, because they more spending a lot of time in the company. So if the company can provide some social activity and encourage them to join and during the working hour, or it may help them to build up the connection between employee and society. But it's really quite difficult because this one is related to the employee perception. But we as a casino operators should be more encourage them or provide more benefits to let them know the casino operator can really provide some immediate help when they are facing on the difficulty.
All right. Thank you so much. I think it's almost time. All right. Thank you, Joey. And now I would like to present certificate to the students. The first one is Stephanie Chang. Second student is Alex Wu. Jovi Lao. So now I'd like to just present a piece of token to Ms. José Pereira Coutinho. Because the other panel members should get the souvenir already. Just souvenir. Thank you for coming. Thank you. All right, now should be the end of the section, and thank you for coming. All right, thank you for all the panel members. Yep, and also the group photos, the last. I would like to invite all the student presenters and the panel members for taking a group photo. Thank you.